Everyone hear me okay? Cool. What's that? All right, cool. So, good morning, everyone. Everyone in here hate mornings as much as I do? Awesome. So, welcome to Dear Blue Team. Basically, this is forensic advice for non-forensic people to make your incident response easier. It's sort of easier. It's more, I think more efficient might be a better term, but I've got to use clickbait to get people in here. I'm sorry. Before we get started, the thoughts and opinions I expressed are not those of IBM. I say that because I am the senior security architect at IBM. I've been a system admin. I've been a consultant. I've been a Unix admin. Now I do some forensics here and there. I won the 2017 DerbyCon Social Engineering Capture the Flag. I'm out for blood this year in Vegas. So you might see me there. I got some certifications. I write blogs for people who will publish them. There's a few examples on the screen. I have my own blog and podcast, Advanced Persistent Security. You should totally check it out. But I'm really lazy about writing blogs for my own site, and I'm kind of slow on the podcasting thing right now too. So anyway, with that being said, why this topic? Why this talk? Well, I'm working through SANS Forensics 508, which is Advanced Incident Response, Digital Forensics, and Threat Hunting. Okay, it's a fun course. There's a lot of good stuff there. It goes with the GCFA if you are interested in the CERT world. But basically, I was synthesizing things, and I really hate to sound like an academic when I say it, but I was synthesizing the material that I had been taught, and I was like, why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? And basically, this is the outcome of that reflection. So, before we get started, I'll go through some baseline stuff just to level the playing field a little bit. I know some of you are probably incredibly skilled at incident response. Some of you might have heard the phrase and it's still voodoo. So we hear DFIR all the time. There's the SANS DFIR Summit, DFIR CTFs all the time. DFIR is Digital Forensics and Incident Response. Digital forensics being the science of reconstructing events that occurred or other digital pieces of evidence. It also applies to the science of identification, collection, and examination leading to the analysis of this data. Incident response as a whole is the big picture. It's the business response. It includes things technical and non-technical. When we get into the technical side of incident response, that's when we get into the incident handling phase. And I took these definitions, specifically the incident response versus incident handling, from the SANS Internet Storm Center. So if anyone disagrees, that's who you want to argue with. To get into the process, using SANS again, because I think this process is really easy. I'm sorry for the font color. I keep saying I'm going to change it, but I always forget. You commonly hear the phrase PyCurl. Preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. The majority of this talk will be living in the preparation phase, but then there's going to be a point in time when we're somewhere between identification and containment. So just keep that in mind, because the vast majority of us, if we're not actively doing incident response, we're always in the preparation phase. You're in the preparation phase until an incident happens, and then you trigger the rest of the process. So, if you want to look at it that way. Another buzzword that we hear all the time is threat intelligence. Cyber threat intelligence. CTI, whatever you want to call it. Where does it fit into the equation? Well, I have intelligence that an adversary targeting organizations like mine, say for example, you work in finance, you have intelligence saying that adversaries are trying to infect you with this new whiz-bang, never heard of before, ransomware. That's an actionable piece of advice. How does that play into your incident response? Well, you should probably review your incident response plan and make sure you have a defined response for those dystopian type scenarios. But at the same time, you may be doing your own analysis on something and say, hey, you know what? This seems to be a repeatable process. Maybe I should, this is true threat intelligence. Maybe I should put this on a feed or something if you're allowed to. So, would forensics and threat intelligence be the same? Anyone? Are they the same? No? Okay. And then the other question would be, which triggers which? Does threat intelligence trigger incident response, or does incident response produce threat intelligence? It's a trick question. Because sometimes, if you're hunting, you already have the threat intelligence that you're moving in with. You're looking for a specific adversary, a specific thing. When you're doing your response, you may find something. In that scenario of this never heard of before ransomware, you have things that it does that you could pass along to someone else, like an information sharing group or something, that they could make meaningful use of it. So with forensics, we have a few types of forensics. When I took the course, I thought file system forensics was about it. I didn't even realize, I'd heard of volatility, but I didn't realize that memory forensics was really as powerful as it is. I knew of network forensics, but I hadn't really put two and two together yet. So basically, there's the three types of forensics in a broad stroke. Of course, there are others. But I've also listed common tools that you could use. And the cool thing about the tools I always try to list, most, if not all of this, is free. I don't like to say go buy this product because I don't sell products. But anyway, some of the common ones would be like Sleuth Kit. Autopsy's the GUI for it. Scalpel's pretty awesome. It's a rebuild of Foremost. Volatility can kind of do some file system, but that's not really what it's... I mean, it's like hammering a nail. You can hammer a nail with a baseball bat. The nail will probably still go in, but it just won't be as efficient. And FTK can do it, but that's a paid thing. With the network stuff, Wireshark, if you're trying to go fast and easy, because when I was a consultant, I didn't have time to sit and pilfer through Wireshark and run regular expressions all day, because a lot of the times the salespeople where I worked would absolutely underscope everything. So for something I would need 12 hours for, I might get 6 if I'm lucky. So that's where Network Miner came into play, because it basically is a lazy man's Wireshark. It's pretty awesome. I've got it in the demo, assuming the demo gods like me today. If you want to play with operating systems, one of the other demos would be SIFT, SANS Investigative Forensic Toolkit. You can install that on top of Remnux or Remnux on top of it, one way or the other, or you could keep them separate. Remnux being a reverse engineering malware distribution, also curated by SANS, specifically Lenny Zeltser. It was built by Dave Westcott, which also built Bouscador for you OSINT enthusiasts. Kane is another one. I've never really played with it, but I know of its existence. It's a computer-aided investigative networking environment. Kali can kind of do it, but again, that's the baseball bat versus the hammer, right? You could do some stuff during a pen test that would be technically forensics, but I wouldn't do a full investigation there. It's just not equipped with all the tools. Mercenary Linux doesn't appear to be a thing. After every time I get this presentation, always go and look and try to find out, is Mercenary Linux still alive? And it appears as if it's not. So consider yourselves lucky. That's the last time it's going to be on the slide. So, threat hunting. It's one of those new buzzwords, right? It goes right alongside Bitcoin, blockchain, technical debt, the cybers, APT, next generation, in parentheses, advanced persistent next generation squared. Oh, sorry, I thought I was at RSA for a second. My bad. But anyway, it's one of those terms. Let me simplify it for you. Tools and techniques, for the most part, they're the same that you're going to use for a forensic examination. What you're going to do for postmortem forensics would be the same thing you're doing for threat hunting. You're just doing it before something happens. Benefits? Well, you're going to detect faster. You're going to be able to respond better. There's a certain level of maturity with that. You probably don't want to go threat hunting if you don't have an incident response team. It's probably not something you want to pay a consultant to do because it's based on what is normal. So, as a consultant, I might have got 24 hours to go in and threat hunt a network. Here's the problem. If there's like 5,000 systems on that network, how much do you think I'm going to learn about that network in 24 hours? I'm sorry, 24 billable hours. No. Their system admins, on the other hand, if they had an incident response team, they know what is normal. Their help desk I guarantee they know what's normal. But, nevertheless, I digress. The comparison between the two, basically, for forensics and incident response as a whole, there's not a lot of prerequisites. Typically, the prerequisite is you get notified. either from your SOC, from a client, from a partner, from the feds, from Brian Krebs. I mean, according to Jason Street, Brian Krebs should not be your IDS. Unfortunately, he is. And as much as in the forensic world we want to say, we want to analyze everything, we want to get all the data out of everything, the business disagrees. And at the end of the day, they sign the paycheck, they win the fight. So we restore things quickly, we go about our business. Threat hunting, on the other hand, basically you have to deal with the prerequisite being, are we mature? To quote Michael Santarcangelo, are we tall enough to ride the ride? If you don't have several of the critical security controls, I'm not going to give you a specific number because I don't know your organization, I don't know your threat tolerance, I don't know your budget, I don't know any of that. But if you don't have a good majority of those, and at least the incident response one, don't even talk about this. If you don't have your first 5, no, just stop what you're doing and go back to the first 5. Anyway, again, it's based around what's normal. You could potentially have a piece of threat intelligence that you're specifically hunting for when you're doing this. You are at a financial institution, you have intelligence that that actor is trying to do those actions, okay? Based on what has happened with other financial institutions when that actor did those actions. These were the things that they observed. You go looking for those things so you can find them before they are able to alert Brian Krebs as to your lack of security. And this is where it gets tricky. It's not based on a time objective. That's why it's hard for consultants to do it. Because, again, you're not going to have the time to get the lay of the land. With the pen test, yeah, I mean, you can totally go in there 24 hours, run responder, do this, scan that, pop this box, get this shell, whiz bang, write report, you're done. That's not quite the case with this. So anyway, again, with more of the standard DFIR talk, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way as well. Logging, we hear it all the time. Do it verbose, but at the same time, parse like there's no tomorrow. Store it somewhere else. In the cloud's a good place as long as it's not an S3 swimming pool. Since apparently bucket's not the correct term anymore as much as they leak. The logs can make you or break you because while you may be doing things with memory or network information, you still got to corroborate it with logs. That's part of the thing. You're looking at the big picture. Inventory everything. Critical security control number 1 and number 2. Have an inventory of authorized and unauthorized hardware and software. If you don't have those, I mean, how do you know what's on your network? How can you effectively defend and respond to threats in your network if you don't know what's there? Give you a hint, if you do vulnerability scanning, you might be able to find it. As long as you don't do it by host, I just say, every IP, scan the world. Only in the internal ranges. Nevertheless, if you want to play with Consa, that can actually interrogate your Windows host and keep the data local to one host. You can parse that out, run your regular expressions, do whatever you want with it. It's great. Update your inventories. Okay, I did an inventory 2 years ago. I'm compliant. What about that IoT thing that the CEO put in his office and didn't tell anybody? It's connected to the network and not the guest network. He had one of the help desk guys come up and bully him, and he bullied him and said, "I'm the CEO, you're going to connect this." "Yes, sir." So anyway, have network time. If you have a single site, maybe you don't need NTP, maybe you don't need to use like UTC or GMT, whatever you want to call it. But if you're across multiple time zones, you need one consolidated time that the logs are in. So you're not having to do math on your fingers in the middle of an incident. So keep that in mind. And then baselines, I'm going to get into, that's basically what this is about. Baselines. But anyway, soft skills with this, you need to know who to notify, how to notify them, when to notify them, what data to give them. For example, in my social engineering talks, I say, if someone clicks a fish, I don't want to see them punished. You need to tell them exactly how to report it. Don't just say call security because they're going to call the gate guard and he's going to be like, "Okay, cool. Have a nice day. Come on in. Come on in. I don't need to see your badge. Just come on in." But say, call this number. Send this email. Although I don't recommend sending emails to report incidents and wonky stuff because, well, assume it's compromised. So that whole zero trust mentality. If you want to use carrier pigeons, Morse code, Campbell soup cans on a rope, whatever you want. Communicate, however. Slack's there, Signal's there, Wicker, whatever. Get up and walk over to the person. I mean, we could all use a few extra steps a day, right? I know I can. My mom was on my case about going to a lot of cons, but then later on that day, she was on my case about my weight, and I was like, but Mom, I've got to go to the cons. Why? Why can't you just stay home? Well, because when I go to the cons, I do like 17,000 steps a day. Oh, good Lord. You're trying that social engineering crap again. It's like, sorry. Anyway, what actions do you want them to take? I can't define this for you. Do you want them to hibernate the system so that you can actually get the hibernation file reconstructed into memory or whatever? Do you want them to shut it down? Do you want them to unplug from the network? When you're telling people to unplug from the network, here's a hint. Use the same colored network cable across your entire organization. Here's why. My mom's nearing 60, and she, needless to say, is not a very technical person. And I think about things from the perspective of, I'm telling my mom to unplug this from the network. Cool. If I say unplug the network cable, she's going to unplug every single cable in the back. In your environment, that may destroy some of your evidence, and it may make things harder for you. If I say unplug the yellow cable, she's going to unplug the yellow cable. In the military, we had a thing called the bomb threat worksheet. When you would answer the phone, if someone was calling in a bomb threat, this was a list of questions you were supposed to ask. Situational information about where are you calling from, what will trigger this, why are you doing this? And it never happened when I was in, but I'm sure if someone actually did call one in, they would be like the strangers, like the horror movie, and say, when you say, why are you doing this? They'd be like, because you were home. Yeah, probably not. But anyway, what actions do you want to take? And this is dependent upon your organization. I can't tell you the right answer. I can tell you what not to do. And that would be, don't do anything that's going to mess up the chain of custody. You need to respect it because that is, if it has to go to court, if it goes to litigation, chain of custody is going to make you or break you. Period. If you're dealing with a malicious insider threat that's stealing intellectual property and selling it, and your company is going to want to take them to court, if you've destroyed your chain of custody, if they have the least bit of a dog of a lawyer, like a bulldog of a lawyer, you're done. Straight up. So here's a couple of examples. Compromised account, don't change the password. Non-repudiation, nope, that's out the window. Chain of custody, out the window. You can disable the account, don't change the password. This one absolutely blew my mind. This is actually from an incident I responded to. Do not delete the VM that was on the public internet running RDP without a VPN in between with a 4-character administrator password. When the incident responder gets there and says, hey, I would like to take a look at this and look at the logs. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't do logging here. Okay, could I take a look at the host? Oh, no, I already deleted it. I needed a lot of Pepto that day. And by Pepto, I might have meant tequila. I don't know. But anyway, again, respect the chain of custody. So now, let's talk about the cool stuff. Now that we're out of the boring standard talk, just checking my time to make sure I'm good. Let's talk about memory analysis. There's a lot of ways that you can actually acquire memory. I'm going to do a demo later of showing you FTK Imager Lite. FTK Imager Lite is for the ripe price of free 50. Lite. I didn't say Imager. Imager is not free 50. It might be tree 50, but not free 50. Other things you could do. If you use Google Rapid Response, which includes Recall, which is actually a fork of Volatility, you can actually capture that way. You can use paid things like F-Response. Mandated Intelligent Response has that kind of stuff as well. Assessment tools. If you're wanting to go with the command line and like really dig into the trenches, Recall, Volatility. If you want to look at it from the 30,000 foot view to kind of get a point to dig towards, which I actually forgot to start for the demo piece, but that's okay, would be Redline. Use a version before 1.20 because they did away with this nifty little thing called the MRI, the Malware Risk Index. That right there is a little disk on the left of the screen that, depending on certain things, it will turn red if it is at a certain level. So if you're doing a quick analysis, quick touch, you're running through, looking at all the processes, everything that's going, there's something that's red. Maybe I should take a look at that. What PID is that? Let's drill down and find the parent. We'll find any children. We'll find out what was associated with it and move on. So 1.14 is the one I'm using, so I think that's the last one before 20. Anyway, so why do memory analysis? We want to find out what's going on the system. Something may have not been logged, the log may have been tampered with, there may have been, something might not have made it to the file system yet. So why are we doing this? Well, because we have to, right? If we want to find out what's going on. So for anyone who does malware analysis, here's a tidbit for you. I'm sure on your detonation host, you've probably got sysinternals running so that you can find out all this extra stuff. I'll give you a hint. If it's a VM, you can pause it, take the vmem file, analyze it with volatility using like procmon, procdump, and the such, and it can replace almost all of those tools. And you can get so much more out of it than just than what those tools will give you. In forensics, we deal with timelines a lot. We look at a timeline of what events occurred in the file system, on the network, and so forth and so on. What happened? So we're looking to recreate the story of the adverse event. You can actually use memory to create a timeline as well. Volatility will do that. You can look at processes. If you have a specific registry key you want to look at, you can do that. In the course, Rob Lee, he pointed out that you can actually get the registry key creation date. What is significant about that is most adversaries on this planet, there's speculation that there's a few who can, most adversaries cannot alter that date. That is truth in terms of when that key was created. And then, of course, malware. So here's a few things you could do. So to give the pen tester something to work with here, you can use Mimikatz or dump hashes. If you want to pass the hash, there's how you get the hash from memory. That's probably the reason why volatility is included in Kali Linux. You can look at rogue processes, psscan, pslist. Supposedly pstotal you cannot get unless you take the SANS course and it's included in that VM. I've got a little bit of static that says that it's on GitHub. It will actually create a image for you to use that will color code things to expedite the process. I come from the school of thought of color coding is not necessarily lazy because sometimes you have salespeople who underscope your hours. So sometimes it's about being efficient, not leet. Keep that in mind. Get key, that's the registry key creation date. When known malware, that's the malfind, malsysproc. There's a few others similar to that. You can even carve processes into executables and then hash that executable and then check it in something like VirusTotal, ThreatMiner, ThreatCrowd. Insert threat intelligence feed here. You can check it there. So some other analysis outside of memory, but it's something we need to talk about. And that would be, we need to get a sample. We need a sample every time you update something. But we also want to configure the prefetch. We want to use something like prefetch parser to analyze this. The prefetch basically, since XP, it allows us to have specific data for the compatibility of files to make them start faster, would be the term. It's going to use prefetch parser. It's going to search for the files. The files are at that blue path. And then lack of prefetch files could mean one of two things. It's not configured or somebody deleted it. If you don't have it configured, then you're not going to see it. If you do have it configured and you see a host that has it missing, that adversary is probably taking it out for you. Another one, the shim cache, also known as the application compatibility cache. There's where you can find that in the registry, but basically it does something very similar to prefetch, except it's not necessarily the file, but it's going to give you things like last modify time in the standard info. That's something that's going to tell you, hey, maybe I should look at some events around this time frame for this malicious process that has this specific trait. You can get the full file path, and that's pretty awesome sometimes. But anyway, so here comes the meat and potatoes. You should always have a golden image. HR has different processes, different software that they're going to use than IT. Accounting's going to use something different. Help desk is probably going to have something custom. The C-levels are going to have their own thing. Have a standard image, one for your entire organization. When I say image, I'm not meaning memory image yet. I'm meaning like this is your ISO for the quarter, for the month, whatever. Whatever you're capable of doing. Have it. There's your baseline. You know the versions in everything. All right? Why don't we get the hashes of all of these? the version number, it's important, but if someone has, I don't know, I'll use just a random piece of software. If you have Oracle ERP version 12.2.5 installed, great. What happens when someone Trojans it? How are you going to know that if all you care about is version 12.2.5? So this is where file integrity monitoring becomes important. You could use some file integrity monitoring software like HIDS or some of the other things out there. I think Tripwire has something. Or you could just write a very simple script. Could be Bash, could be Batch, could be PowerShell, could be Python, could be VB. If you're really a glutton for punishment, you might even be able to do it in Fortran or COBOL. Just saying. But with that, you can find out what's been changed. So MD5 deep is a quick, efficient method to do that. So MD5 specific files. Okay, cool. So what happens when the hash doesn't match? How are you going to find out what's different? Well, there's a thing called SS deep, which is called fuzzy hashing, that does byte by byte hashing. And basically it allows you to do a diff. And you can see specifically what changed. You can script all of that with very simple for statements, for I in host dot whatever, do hash. If hash matches, great. If hash doesn't match, do fuzzy hash, find the diff, move on. Very simple. With the registry, hash it, back it up, make sure that you've got what's going on. If you need to write some regular expressions to parse the information that's important in there, go for it. So, with that, Volatility itself has 3 plugins for baseline analysis. What that means is you have a memory image. You remember those standard images I just mentioned a few minutes ago? You take a memory image of them before you deploy them. You execute, capture, deploy. So when something gets popped, you don't have to go find the known good system, because at that point I wouldn't say any system is known or good. They might be known, but they're not good. So instead of going and trying to find an adjacent PC that may or may not be affected, just not showing signs yet, you already have the image. And yes, there are fundamental flaws with what I just said, because if a nation state or someone who really wanted to get you got you while you were making the image, it's going to be flawed. Yes, I acknowledge that, but we're not trying to defend against nation states in this talk. We're trying to just make life a little bit easier, right? So keep that in mind. But we can do that for drivers, processes, and services. It'll just basically do side-by-side comparison, tell you the differences. So if you want to take an image of every single host, you can do so. If you've got the budget for it, share some money with me. I just want money. Because it's going to cost you. 12 gigs of RAM creates a 12 gig image, or a 12 gig file of the memory image. So when you start dealing with that, you start dealing with your servers with like 64 gigs of RAM, it's going to start to fill up quick. So storage, I mean, if you can do it, do it. It won't scale well. You can script it, but nevertheless, that's why I say have the standard image take a memory capture of each variation of the image. So have that help desk software running when you capture. That way, when during a social engineering engagement, someone calls the help desk and convinces them to do something they shouldn't do, not that that ever happens, you know what is supposed to be running. You don't just say, these things were supposed to be running. I don't know. It's taking the I don't know out. But anyway, so with network forensics, I'm not going to go too deep into this. It's actually a single slide, but it definitely plays into the equation as well. Take your PCAPs as often as possible, store as long as possible. Again, storage is money. 3 things in this industry are money. I'm not meaning APT, threat hunting, and blockchain, or Bitcoin, or Ethereum, or insert whatever here. Processing power, storage, time. Those are the 3 variants that equate to money. Hence the reason crypto mining is so popular right now. But anyway, integrate it with your SIM. Most SIMs will allow you to look at net flow data. They'll allow you to aggregate your logs, parse them, and compare them at a 30,000-foot view. Some of them will even do PCAPs. You can even script that under certain conditions they will start a PCAP for you. Some integrate with vulnerability data. A couple right off the top of my head I can think of that do that. Carve your PCAPs. Wireshark, Network Miner, they'll both do it. So with that being said, let's move to the demo period. Assuming the demo gods are not angry with me today. Just shifting over, and I'm going to apologize in advance. The font's going to look really wonky. We tried to fight it before I came up here, but it just didn't jive. So I apologize for that. If it works, great. If not, then I'll find another way to get through it. Okay, so sorry, the font's really off. I can't zoom in, but this is FTK Imager Lite. If you want to take a memory capture, very simple. Capture memory. Give it a path. Capture memory. You can take a page file, you can get the 81 if you want it. I don't really play with that, but I'm probably going to start playing with it to see what I can learn from that later. The cool thing is you don't have to install this either. You can put it on a thumb drive, capture to the same thumb drive, walk away. What if a pen tester did that? Maybe that might be my 2019 talk. I don't know. Perhaps. But anyway, that's one of the fun stuff. And I've lost my toolbar down here. Give me a moment. There it is. Just had to kill that. Let's look at Network Miner. So, I don't know what just happened, but I'll take it. Oh, it went back to extend. Yeah, the demo gods must be upset with me. It's okay. So, Network Miner, again, the font's wonky, but here we'll just open. So I've got some PCAPs here. We'll start with something fun first. So here is SMB. Notice right here, I've got PuTTY on the system. It's not running. So right here, we can see which hosts. We can get some data like sessions sent, received, stuff that kind of gives you an indication, was there data exfiltration? Is this worthwhile? Should we do further analysis? We can look at some parameters over here. Okay, cool. Sessions. All right, well, this host connected to this host. Ooh, 445. I bet that's SMB. Actually, I knew that from the file name. Sorry. Anyway, here's the file. So there's PuTTY. All right, we can calculate the hash with this. Right here are the hashes. If you've carved something out of the network and you want to see if it's malicious, copy these hashes, take it to the threat intelligence feeds, virus total, whatever, if that's in your company's policy. If it's not in your company's policy, you may blow something within your company. They may be tracking a specific adversary, and by you uploading this, the adversary will be alerted. So if that's in your company's threat model, follow your company's threat model. Don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble. Another way, if you want to go about it, you can actually open the folder and drag and drop it. So you can carve the file out. Just waiting for, there it is. So we see all the stuff right here. You could actually move this to your detonation host and do some stuff there if you'd like, or you could upload the file itself to like virus total or whatever, or send it to your friend who likes to analyze this stuff. And I'll do it with this one, but I won't do it with the other piece of the demo. You can actually open the file. And by doing so, look, PuTTY just opened. It executed PuTTY. So you've got that. So let's look at it a little bit differently. Let's look at some nastiness. I'll do one that I don't typically open up. So here we're seeing all the connections. We're seeing some details about it, like what it was going to, all this stuff here on the right. We get the timestamp. Sorry, these are files. It's not the... So there's a boatload of traffic in this. There's a lot of noise to have to work your way through. So you can find out what's going on here, determine what's normal. And with the files, if you're looking for the malware piece, I literally just go over, bless you very much. I look at the size, and I scroll to the biggest file. Here's an executable. Why is this HTML file this size? Why is it .php.html? Oh, I'm sorry. Here, I'll pick one up a little bit higher. Okay, with this one, it's not really pointing out the same thing. The one I was looking at below, basically it's system-links_warns.php.html. Okay. The file size is 27,000 bytes. So 27K. Sure. What happens when you start seeing massive HTML files, right? Looking at the file size is a good indication of this is what you want to look further at. You can start dragging and dropping it into VirusTotal, which I have VirusTotal right here. Sorry it's cut off, so I'm not going to be able to do all the fun stuff with it, but you can drag and drop the file if there's a URL. When I'm doing analysis on phishing campaigns, because I have several decoy accounts that I get some fish in, and sometimes when I want to demo a product, then I give them one of those accounts so that when they try to spam me, I can be like, nope. But actually, I'll tell you, I learned something new this week because of GDPR. If you just tell them that you're in Europe, you don't have to be a European citizen. Just say, I'm currently in France and I am exercising my right to be forgotten per the GDPR. They have to delete you. Pro tip. And then you can search right here. You've got domain, file, hash, whatever. You get the hash out of Network Miner. You get the hash from MD5, some whatever. You drop it right here, and something will come up. I'll grab a one here. So there's an executable. You can't see it at the bottom. What I will do, though, bless you very much. Hey, I'm here for you, man. So right here, I just copied the hash. We go here to search. Yep. It's got a lot of red. I'm not a very smart man, but red is bad. I don't think it means they're on the red team either. So another way you can do it with the file, right? So right here, we have the carved out file. There's the path and all that fun stuff. So I'm just going to cut that. I'll close this. Choose a file. Oh, look, there's all my talks for the year. We have that. And then we pick this. Same thing. So you can do it either way. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But it's one way to go about it. With that hash, you can also go into something like Alien Vault, like OTX, which is free 99. And let me get that hash again. I forgot that I had the path. So you choose whichever hash you like. If it's MD5, SHA-1, whatever, it doesn't matter. Most platforms will support all. But anyway, you can go in, search. I found this is my pulse. I'm not going to lie about it, but basically I found an article that discussed it, and when I was working through doing this, at the time I was also an Alien Vault instructor, and Alien Vault was like, hey, you really should have some pulses if you're going to teach students how to make pulses. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I found these articles about it, like Sophos and so on. Oh, that has a really good ring to it, Sophos and so on. Anyway, basically I linked those, and then everything that I got here was out of Network Miner. So any files that I had worked through with like VirusTotal or what have you, and it was found to be malicious, in here. When I found out what was malicious and where it was coming from and headed, then those IPs came in as well. So a little bit of everything. You can do the same thing on ThreatCrowd, which is now also an Alien Vault product. But here's the one I really like. It's Threat Miner. Keep in mind, these are free 99. So we're just searching. You can't see it. Sorry. Let me see if I can scroll down. So right here, it's giving us links to things on VirusTotal, hybrid analysis, threat expert, malware, virus share, with regards to the specific sample. So this is a good place to start. You've got a hash. drop it in threat miner. It will aggregate all the other stuff and tell you, you should probably take another look, or maybe not. So that's just a really good way to go about it. I'm going to skip the red line piece just because time. But right here is sift. And I apologize. Let me do this. All right. So this is sift. We're going to go into this directory. Within this directory, we have a few files. I've already done a lot of the analysis with this as part of capture the flag. But anyway, we have things like right here's the memory image, the raw.001. So if we want to find out, let's just mimikatz it, shall we? I wonder what kind of passwords they use, because I'm nosy. I'm nosy, but I also lost my password. May I have yours? And I am a state licensed password inspector. I'll be doing password inspections in the lobby afterwards. It's what? Hunter 2. In 90 days, will it be Hunter 3? So the one thing about this volatility, you can't see it right now. Volatility takes a bit to do this, but as soon as it's done, I'll get it to where you can see it. So, it's basically with this, you define it's volatility.py, vol.py. You can export your path to the actual image, so you don't have to define a -F switch every time. You can also define a specific profile, so you can say this is a Windows 7 Service Pack 1 x86, and it will actually do that for you instead of having to take some time and do this. And then you say whichever plugin, mimikatz, proc dump, PS total, whatever you want. And then it'll take some time because it's going through a lot of data, and then it'll churn out everything in a nice, pretty way. So this is taking a little bit longer than I was looking for. So let's look. Actually, I'm not going to cat. Do this. So this is the output of malfind. So basically, it's just saying, hey, what's going on here? I forgot I did more instead of cat, but I'm going to. I know the PID of the malicious thing here. So basically, what I did was I grepped for that PID, and we're getting memory addresses for it. So if we keep digging, we can find more data. With this resolution, though, I don't want to really destroy your brains by having to think through this terrible resolution with this terrible font. So I apologize for that. There's several things. Let's see what else I've got here. So we'll take a look at that, the PS total. I'll show you what that looks like. And then I'll open it up for some other stuff really quick. All right, so desktop. So here we have all the stuff. There's some error logs, what have you. But there's the memory image. Here's the memory graph, if you want to take a look at that. And then over here, we also have the PS total. I think this might actually be from PS total as well. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on here, so it's just a matter of, yep, this is from PS total. So basically, we look right here and we can see what's going on. We see what spawned what command was going on. If it went through the command line, we can identify that information as well. And if your salespeople undercut your hours like mine used to, you have color codes to expedite what you want to look at. It's not to say don't look at the other stuff, but this gives you a starting point. Good point for the rabbit hole. With that being said, going to shift back over here momentarily. Come on. Okay, it's not. Oh, there we go. So there's the demonstration pieces. Skip the red line portion. For those of you who know Adrian Sanabria, at the conclusion of this, he can see clearly now the rain is gone. Being good InfoSec people, when a member of your local DEF CON chapter posts a picture to the DEF CON Slack of him with an owl on his hand and him doing his impression of the owl, of course we're going to crop his picture out. That's actually the official mascot of DC 865. So, sure. Very quickly, as I'm summarizing, Brian Austin and I, in cooperation with Peerless, we created Through the Hacking Glass. Basically, we're trying to be the putty between academia and certifications. They both do things very well, but they don't do everything. A lot of times people have a lot of theoretical knowledge, but they have no practical experience, and employers pass them over for no good reason. Through the Hacking Glass is something that we're looking to partner with vendors to get NFR licenses to actually do this kind of stuff. So you can actually have experience with Cisco, with Juniper, with Palo Alto, hopefully. And then basically you will be paired with a mentor, or you can come in with your own mentor, your choice. And then basically you go through some exercises. You're expected to do some writing, not like academic papers, but let's face it, everyone in this industry writes reports. I mean, the sooner you get used to it, the better. And then basically there's a range, 5 roles, 5 levels of difficulty. Harden, attack, monitor, respond, analyze. Difficulty levels, single system, 2 to 5 hosts, small office, home office, homogeneous enterprise, heterogeneous enterprise. We're working on building that stuff now, so the range is not going to be ready in the immediate future. We're about to start pairing mentors and mentees this month, but this is my call to action for you. If you think you can mentor someone on something, even one person, we desperately need your help. We've got over 175 people on the list, and less than 15 of them are signed up to be mentors. So, just to make it good for everyone, we need more mentors with whatever. If you sign up to the mailing list, it's on the Twitter, it's on Peerless as well. It actually asks what role you want. Do you want to be a mentor? Do you want to be a mentee? Do you want to excuse me, do you want to be both? We allow that. Do you want to assist in curriculum development? That's also there as well. Future speaking engagements, later this week I'm going to be in Huntsville for the National Cyber Summit. Then SERI, competing in the DEF CON, SECTF, then Cybersecurity Atlanta, and before that, Hacker Halted. Speaking of Hacker Halted, I like free stuff. Here's a coupon code for free tickets to Hacker Halted if you want them. Unlimited supply. Share them with all your friends if you want. You can get 25% off the training as well if you want to do that. But that's September 13th, 14th in Atlanta. The theme this year is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I will give you a hint. To the best of my knowledge, they will not be giving shirts this year. They will be giving towels. There will probably be a Pan Galactic Gargle Blaster networking reception. I think a very well-known bearded person who potentially talks about security weekly will probably be talking some mixology there. More than likely in his hat. And I'm trying to talk them into a sushi bar for closing ceremony so we can play So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. We'll see. That being said, any questions? Yes?
I just was curious. Great talk, by the way.
Thanks.
How much does this talk apply to malware versus an adversary?
So the question is, how much does this apply to malware versus adversary? Honestly, it's about equal. Because when you're doing this proactive stuff, adversaries and malware both have dwell times, right? Sometimes the malware has a logic bomb for when this happens, do this. Sometimes it just does it right then. If it's something that acts very quickly, no, it's probably very minimally useful. But if you have something that has a logic bomb built into it, something that's going to look for specific things, it's going to be right there with an adversary. So there's something to gain from it, yes. Does that answer the question?
So when you are doing a lot of the IRs, do you find that it's in response to a lot of malware? Like would it be 2/3 malware and then 1/3 adversaries that are trying to go into your industry systems and get something?
Gotcha. So so you're looking for basically a ratio. For a lot of the incident response I did, honestly, it was typically a little bit of both. It was an attack of opportunity because they have that RDP server hanging out on the public internet without a VPN with a 4-character password for admin. Then they get hit with fileless ransomware, which basically is a script. And, a few times there was some malware infection, but a lot of times it was just very bad security leading in. So, the cyber hygiene. Any other questions? Thanks a lot. You've been great.